WVS LP 1037 Muskegon, Muskegon Heights, WGM LP 106.1 Muskegon and Muskegon Heights. You are listening to a live broadcast of the Muskegon County Judicial debate being hosted by one of the great ones in Muskegon. I'm honored to introduce to you the attorney Brianna Scott. She was elected to the Michigan State University Board of Trustees for an 8-year term that began January the 1st, 2019. Brianna Scott grew up in Muskegon and attended Michigan State University, earning a bachelor's degree in marketing. At MSU, she served as president of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. She earned a law degree from Wayne State University in 2000 and is licensed to practice law in Michigan and New York. Scott was hired as the first African-American assistant prosecutor in Muskegon County. During her final year in the prosecuting attorney's office, she worked on felony criminal sexual conduct, neglect, and abuse cases. She later worked at a law firm where she represented municipalities and practiced real property and corporate law, while also serving as a contract attorney for abuse and neglect cases in Muskegon County. In 2005, Scott founded the first minority African-American and female law firm in Muskegon and now employs a full-time staff of 5. She was the past president and the first person of color to lead Muskegon Rotary Club and has acted as its Diversity and Inclusion Committee as the chairperson of Diversity and Inclusion Committee since 2013. She also serves as the legal counsel for the International Churches of God in Christ. We're happy to welcome our wonderful moderator for today, Brianna Scott. Welcome, Brianna. I hope I have you there.
Hear me?
Yes, you're added to the screen now.
Welcome. All right. Okay. Welcome to everyone. It's so nice to see all my colleagues there. I can't see everyone in the audience, but I can tell you that I'm hoping that you all are in for a treat this evening and to learn a lot about our 4 candidates. So I'd like to welcome you all to our virtual debate of the candidates vying for the open seat on the 60th District Court of Muskegon County. Today is July 30th, 2020, and this debate will feature 4 candidates who I have known for a long time, each seeking a seat for the 6-year term that is currently open. In that term, for 6 years, they will have a salary of $149,655 per year. So it's a pretty good paying job. Our sponsor for the debate this evening is 103.7 The Beat, and let's just give them a round of applause and thank you, because this is so important for everyone to have opportunities during COVID to actually hear from people that they will be called to vote for, both in the primary and in the fall. The candidates in alphabetical order are Paula Baker Mathis. Paula, if you want to wave. We have Mark Curtis, Matthew Caso, and Jason Kokomo. So on August 4th, and again this fall, you all are going to be asked to vote for this really important position. And a lot of people may ask, well, why is it important? And I would say this, because our judges in courts each day are charged to ensure the fair, impartial, and independent administration of justice here in this county. And each citizen is to be treated with respect, dignity, fairness. They should receive a fair shake, and our laws should be impartial and fair to all of them. Judges in courts have a significant impact on our daily lives, and we entrust them to make some of the more important decisions that affect us. If you think about this for a moment, only a judge can grant a divorce, only a judge can confirm an adoption, or to terminate parental rights, or as for district court, evict you from your home, or order you to do or to refrain from doing something. They can impose a sentence of punishment. They can also cause or change any types of property rights that you may have. So it's a very important title, and the decisions they make are very far-reaching and have a lot of impact in our communities. Judges and courts exist to protect our liberties and our most fundamental and sacred right as set forth in the Bill of Rights, and as well to protect us from any unlawful or unwarranted intrusions into our lives from the government. Thus, this election is very important. Our district court is one of the busiest courts in the county building and in the state. And if you have never been personally in the district court, either fighting a traffic violation or if you're there to be a witness in a case, or if you were sitting in the jury for a case or supporting a friend or loved one that actually was there for one of their cases, then you are a rare person in Muskegon County. I want to just quickly highlight for you all some very important standards that the American Bar Association has set out for the quality that they believe would show a person to be qualified for a state court position. And there are actually 8 qualities that they have listed, and I'm going to quickly go through each. The first is integrity. So as you listen to the candidates today, you want to hear from them about their integrity and in ways that they have shown that. A candidate should be of integrity. They should know that their character and honesty and truthfulness are to be above reproach. And an individual with integrity necessary to qualify as a judge is amongst one of the most important things, because they have to be able to speak the truth without exaggeration, admit responsibility for mistakes, and put aside any self-aggrandizement. Other elements demonstrating integrity are their intellectual honesty, their fairness, impartiality, and their ability to disregard prejudices, obedience to the laws, and morals. The second thing that the American Bar Association says we should look for is someone that possesses legal knowledge and ability. A candidate should possess a high degree of knowledge of established legal principles and procedures, and have a high degree of ability to interpret them and apply them to specific factual situations. Legal knowledge may be defined as familiarity with established legal principles and evidentiary and procedural rules. Legal ability is the intellectual capacity to interpret and apply the established legal principles to specific factual situations, and then to communicate those both orally and in writing, the reasoning leading to the legal conclusion. They should also possess professional experience. In Michigan, they are required to have at least 5 years, so the length of time is important. Such professional experience should be long enough to provide a basis for the evaluation of the candidate's demonstrated performance, and long enough to ensure that the candidate has substantial exposure to legal problems in the judicial process. We also need to look at temperament. That is the 4th thing that the American Bar Association says is an important quality. The candidate should possess a judicial temperament, which includes common sense, obviously, compassion. They need to be decisive. They need to have firmness and humility, open-mindedness and be patient, tact and understanding. Because the judicial temperament requires an ability to deal with counsel, jurors, witnesses, and parties calmly and courteously, and the willingness to hear and consider the views of all sides. It requires the ability to be even-tempered, yet firm, open-minded, yet willing to be able to reach a decision, confident, yet not egocentric. The 5th is diligence. A candidate should be diligent and punctual. While diligence is not necessarily the same as industriousness, it implies the elements of constancy and attentiveness, perseverance, painstakingness, and assiduousness. And it does imply the possession of good work habits and the ability to set priorities in relation to the importance of tasks to be accomplished. Punctuality should be recognized as a complement of diligence. A candidate should be known to respect the time of other lawyers, clients, and judges. Health. A candidate should be in good physical and mental health. Good health embraces the condition of being sound in body and in mind, and the relative freedom from any physical disease or pain. We don't want anything distracting a judge when they're on the bench. So this criteria is very important, and actually it's one that you can have objective consideration for as you look and watch a person who is running for judge. There are 2 more. The 7th is financial responsibility. A demonstrated financial responsibility of a candidate is one of the factors that the American Bar Association says predicates whether they will have the ability to serve properly. Whether there have been any unsatisfied judgments or bankruptcy proceedings against the candidate, or whether the candidate has promptly and properly filed all required tax returns, are requirements to show financial responsibility. And this demonstrates self-discipline and the ability to withstand pressures that might otherwise compromise the independence or impartiality of a judge. And last and not least is number 8, and that is their public service. The The American Bar Association stresses that consideration should be given to a candidate's previous public service activities. Their participation in public service and pro bono activities adds another dimension to the qualifications of a candidate for judge. The degree of participation in such activities may indicate this person's social consciousness and consideration of others. So now that you know the things that you should be looking for as we enter this debate, I'd like to talk to you about the format for today. The format for this debate is as follows. All candidates will be given 3 minutes for an opening. They will be called in alphabetical order. They will be given 1 minute for a closing statement in reverse alphabetical order. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question, and the questions will be asked in rotation for fairness. I will state the name of each candidate and the question each time. There will be a 10 seconds left warning screen that will inform the candidate that their approaching time limit is coming. And I will say stop when it is time's up. We will begin the 3-minute opening statement with Paula Baker Mathis.
Thank you, Brianna. I appreciate you and 1037 doing this today. But with respect to the introduction, I am Paula Baker Mathis. I was born in Flint, Michigan, and raised in Saginaw County. Then went to college at Tulane University, graduated in 1990. Then went to Cooley Law School in Lansing before it became part of Western Michigan. Graduated in 93 and then began my career. Started doing pro bono work as my first career work, and helping indigent people with domestic violence and personal protection order here. I then went on to work at Legal Services of Northern Michigan for 4 years before moving to Muskegon to work in the prosecutor's office. I worked at the prosecutor's office for 10 years. I've also been in private practice, and most currently am a member of the Muskegon County Public Defender's Office for the last 6 years. During my time here in Muskegon, I met my husband, who was born and raised here, and we have 2 children. I'm also involved in a number of community activities. I'm a board member of the Women's Division of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm the PTO president. I was on the Reese Puffer School Board and was also on the West Michigan Symphony Board. I've worked with the Bar Association and on some expungement clinics as well. I've also been trained in the restorative justice programs as well as the sobriety and drug court programs. I was a member of the sobriety court team for 7 or 8 years, I believe. And have gotten to see the impact that those types of programs have had on our community. So that is my introduction, and I appreciate your allowing me to introduce myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Next, we'll hear from Mark Curtis. Mark Curtis, that's Matt Casel. Hi, Matt. There's Mark.
There I am.
The other Mark.
Good evening, Brianna. Good evening, PA. Thank you very much for hosting this debate tonight. As you've already stated, my name is Mark Curtis. I'm here tonight along with the 3 other candidates for Muskegon County District Court Judge to help you all learn more about me, my approach to this important job as District Court, and to humbly ask for your vote on August 4th in the primary election. I'm here because I want to make a difference in our community. Far too often you hear great words and great promises from candidates who run for office. As I provide my answers to Mrs. Scott's questions this evening, you will see that I'm not just a run-of-the-mill lawyer looking to be a judge. I have a passion for justice, and what that means to me is a lifelong student of the law. I've strived my entire career to ensure that my fellow citizens have received equal justice under the law. I combine my passion for justice with my passion for people. A justice system that doesn't demonstrate compassion is not just. It is simply a means settling disputes and or punishing people. To me, the combination of passion for justice and compassion for people is a combination that must be held in the court. I have been a military police canine handler, and served in Iraq as an Army military police officer. This has given me a dedication for service and a dedication to protect individuals' rights. I swore to uphold the Constitution when I enlisted. I swore to uphold the Constitution when I graduated and was sworn into the bar. And I swore to uphold the Constitution continuously, no matter what my job is. I have been in the Muskegon County Prosecutor's Office for 10 years. I've been in private practice now for 8. I have assured and been ensuring that the rights of all citizens of Muskegon County are protected. I have worked in district court. I have worked in circuit court. I have worked in circuit and district courts around the state. It is important to know and to look at, as Ms. Scott said, a person's volunteer work. I have been a volunteer at Special Olympics for over 10 years, working at the Polar Plunge. I have worked on food trucks in our community. I have been working at Kids Food Basket, assisting, getting meals ready and packaging meals. The position of a district court judge is one that has to show a compassion for people. I believe that that is vital. It is important that the person be treated with respect, heard with respect, and that the litigants feel when they leave that they have been heard. And I believe that we should be able to have that in our district court. Thank you, Brianna.
Thank you, Mark. And next we will hear from Matt Casel.
Thank you, Brianna. First and foremost, Mark, thank you for your service. I truly appreciate that. I want to say that first and foremost. I thank you for hosting this. In these times of COVID, it's been very difficult to be able to reach out to every voter that we want to. So this is a great way to do it, and I appreciate this happening. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in a town called Waterford, Michigan. It's in Oakland County. It's kind of up 75 from Detroit, about 40 minutes. Was raised by a dad who was an engineer at GM and a mom who was a nurse. I went to Michigan State University for undergrad and received a bachelor's degree in public administration and public policy. When I was in undergrad, I worked for a state senator and kind of got disillusioned with how frustrating politics can be, how it really doesn't solve direct problems. Just got tired of the kind of petty bickering, decided I should kind of try to make a direct impact on people. And I went to law school at Michigan State University, formerly Detroit College of Law. While I was in Michigan State University, one of the first jobs or internships I took was with Judge Thomas Boyd in the 55th District Court in Ingham County. Learned a lot about district court during that time. Also worked for the tax tribunal in Lansing. Also worked for Legal Aid of South Central Michigan, and worked with kind of the poorest in society, mostly doing civil work and also doing real estate type work for them. And was a great experience understanding how some of the world lives and how blessed I truly am. I think it's incredibly important. After law school, I moved over to Muskegon, and I've been practicing here ever since. I'm in private practice. I practice primarily in the areas of family law, custody, parenting time, divorce, adoptions, guardianships, some license restoration, and now a smaller percentage is criminal defense. I've had the pleasure of representing clients in over 18 counties in the state of Michigan, and I appear in District Court, Muskegon County, normally when we're open on a day-to-day basis. Unfortunately, we're not, but I appear in court, if not every other day, nearly every day in District Court. I know the inner workings of the court. I've met my wife, Rachel, here. We've been married for 7 years. Got 3 wonderful children, 4, 7, and 14-year-old, going on 21 for all those out there that have teenagers. They know what I mean. And love being here. I've also appeared in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Michigan. I believe that really the campaign slogan really is running to make a difference. And really what I mean by that is I don't want to be a candidate who just says I'm most qualified, but I'm really intending on trying to make Muskegon, where I love and where I've decided to raise my kids, a much better place. And I look forward to kind of getting into that as we go on here in the debate. So again, I appreciate letting me introduce myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And our last but not least, we have Jason Kokomo.
Hello. Hello. I'd like to thank WUVS for this opportunity. My name is Jason Kokomo. I was born in the city of Muskegon, 1971. My parents lived out on Terrace Street, and by the time that I was about 1 year old, they moved to Fruitport. And there I was raised with 6 other siblings. I went to Fruitport High School, graduated in 1989. And pretty much left Fruitport when I was 18 years old. Went to Michigan State University, studied anthropology and political science. I then went to law school in Detroit, University of Detroit Mercy. Graduated in 1996. Took the bar exam and passed that year. So for the last 24 years, I've been practicing law in different components. My first 3 years was spent here in Muskegon working for David Bowen, doing landlord-tenant, real estate, construction liens, generally property, and many matters in front of the district court. I then got a job over at Johnson Rosati in Lansing, where I did municipal defense work for cities, counties, and townships, representing police officers, firefighters, zoning administrators, city managers, and things of that nature, anytime you would sue a municipality. Which kind of brought me into a broad area of understanding both tort law, property, and contract law. After Lansing, about 7 years ago, I got a divorce, moved back to Muskegon to start my own general practice law firm. I've been doing that since. In that capacity, I handle misdemeanors and felonies, as well as real estate transactions, driver's or liquor licenses primarily, and divorce and custody. So over the last 24 years, outside of the actual practice of law, I've been involved in a number of activities. My professional activities include being a special ed hearing officer, receiving appointments from the state of Michigan when parents can't agree and schools can't agree as to who should be the hearing officer. They're appointed. Also served on the Village of Fruitport Village Council, Village of Fruitport Planning Commission. Before that, it was the East Lansing Zoning Board of Appeals, the Board of Directors for Autism Society of Michigan. So public service has always been a part of my life. And as the district court itself has jurisdiction over basically criminal matters and civil. And what I offer is a broad view of the law on both the criminal as well as the civil. On the civil side, you have landlord-tenant matters, land contract forfeitures, garnishments, and civil claims under $25,000. Now, and even as to the civil claims under 25, that requires a broad view, and I believe that I have the experience to bring that.
Thank you, Jason. I hope you didn't find that too rude, but I am going to say stop when we start to get over, just to be courteous and fair as well to everyone else. So we will go into our first question, which will go to. I'm sorry. Okay, so we're going to go on to our first question, which will go to Mark Curtis. Mark, the first question is, during this current pandemic, what are some of the biggest challenges you feel that our district court is currently facing, and how do you propose, if you were to take the bench and you win this election, what are you going to do to fix these things? I'm sure you've seen a lot going wrong while we've been in court. So here you go. You've got 60 seconds.
I think the biggest problem addressing district court right now is that district court basically functions with having people in the courtroom and being able to conduct trials. I think that the learning is that the Zoom courtrooms have been available to all the judges this entire time. And I think that minus jury trials, which we can't do because we can't bring all the jurors in, we can move forward with the bench trials with having the attorneys present in the courtroom, following the proper social distancing procedures, but then having the Zoom participants, the witnesses, the police officers, the landlords, the tenants, everybody can participate by Zoom. And if not, or they don't have the capability, we could set something up inside the courthouse or remotely for them to be able to handle. the biggest fear I have right now, and I think everybody can share my concern, is that everything's getting delayed and adjourned and pushed back, that stuff that we were dealing with in March isn't getting set until November, and we don't know what's going to happen then.
Your time's up. Stop. Thank you. The same question. Given the current pandemic, Attorney Kaso, and all of the challenges you're seeing in our current district courts, how do you propose to address them?
Thank you, Brianna. I think Mark kind of hit it on the head. I think the biggest challenge that we face is kind of the backlog of these cases. Particularly a lot of my clients are concerned about jury trials, and it's kind of impossible right now to do those. However, I'm concerned as time goes on that we're going to have to face reality. We're going to have to do jury trials. There is a right to a speedy trial, and I think we have to balance that with the safety of the public. But I think we're going to have to figure out some way potentially to do those, and whether that's in an auditorium setting or whatever, to space the jurors out. Obviously, I wouldn't do that now, but as we start going on and on and on, the kind of constitutional rights of people are going to be implicated. But I certainly think the idea of having just the attorneys in court and having participants via Zoom as much as we possibly can, even with those judges that don't like to do that, I think we need to do that.
Thank you. You finished right on time. Same question to Attorney Kokomo. Given the current pandemic that we are experiencing, what do you feel are the biggest challenges facing our district court, and how do you propose to address them? Attorney Kokomo, can you hear me? We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay.
You have 1
Well,
minute.
the first priority here would be to get the courts opened on a regular basis. It's obviously difficult with being able to present evidence, whether it's documentary evidence and calling witnesses. We still have the same type of subpoena power. I think that the courts are moving in the right direction when it comes to the electronic communications, hearings through Zoom, but it's still very problematic. The courts are essential for purposes of maintaining the law. It is really our only review that we have over police protection and things of that nature. And it's the primary vehicle by which we provide due process. All of these matters, whether it's criminal or civil, they all require some sort of element of due process. And so it is incredibly important to keep the courts open at all times.
Thank you, Attorney Kokomo. Same question to Attorney Baker Mathis. Given the current pandemic that we are experiencing at this time and the challenges facing our district court, how do you propose to address them?
I see the big issue is many do. The backlog of cases is going to be the most important challenge. But we also need to maintain due process and protect everyone's constitutional rights. So with this backlog, which we need to do to protect everybody's health, we also need to put into place the plan to expedite cases once the health situation has been resolved. And I am willing to work with all of the stakeholders to try and create a plan to expedite the hearings or trials to try and make that everyone's due process rights protect as well as their constitutional rights.
Thank you. And now on to our next question, which will go to Attorney Matthew Kaso. This question is, how would you deal with a pro se party appearing in your court? And just for the purposes of our audience, because they may not understand what pro se means, that means that the person is representing themselves in court. They are without legal counsel, and they have a right to do that. There is only certain elements that we attorneys can provide that maybe a person can't, but the courts consider most to be able to learn what they need to in order to effectively represent themselves. So we see it a lot in our courts, and I'd like to know how you would deal with any types of cases, whether it be criminal or civil, where a person wants to represent themselves.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Well, first and foremost, I think we have to understand when you come in there without an attorney, this may be this person's first interaction with a court. They're obviously nervous. They're looking for someone to treat them with dignity and respect. Patience, I think, is most important. Patience in treating them with dignity and respect, understanding that they aren't a lawyer, that they are out of their element. They might be a very smart individual, but they're not trained in law. So I think that's first and foremost, have a patient demeanor with them. Second is if there's a recognition that they are actually hurting themselves by not being represented, I think it's an obligation of the court to stop the person and say, hey, look, you might want to get an attorney with this, because you're kind of hurting yourself, and also to potentially adjourn a hearing or delay a hearing to give that person the opportunity to do that. And finally, I think it's important that we hold, pro se litigants to the same standards we hold any other lawyer, and that is that they follow the rules of evidence and the court rules.
Thank you, Attorney Kasel. Same question to Attorney Jason Kokomo. If you will answer the question, how you would deal with a pro se party appearing in your court.
Yes. Well, I've dealt with a lot of pro se individuals in suing the government, essentially. It is difficult because they just lack an understanding about certain things like the rules of civil procedure, the rules of evidence. But the primary thing that I've learned in dealing with them is to get along with them. You need to be fair with them because of the lack of understanding of rules of civil procedure. It can certainly result in some delay in the proceedings, but fairness is everything when it comes to how they feel about having their day in court. And
all right. I think we lost Attorney Kokomo towards the end. We will now pick up with the same question to Attorney Paula Baker Mathis. Same question to you, Paula. How would you deal with a pro se party appearing in your court?
As anyone that I've dealt with, I always try to be respectful of their position and be patient. And I think that's the temperament that you have to have when you're dealing with individuals who are just trying to get their story out. I find that has helped me have a better relationship with my public defender clients. And I think of that as the same approach that I would take in the courtroom with individuals who are representing themselves.
Thank you, Attorney Baker Mathis. And I believe we started off with Attorney Kasel. So the last person to answer this question is Attorney Mark Curtis. Same question to you. How would you deal with a pro se party appearing in your court?
Thank you, Brianna. It would be with patience and respect. When somebody comes in that's representing themselves, they usually don't know the court process from the very beginning, and they need help. We see that a lot with landlord-tenant, with the tenants coming in who don't understand and sometimes need to be told. I would strongly encourage them to get an attorney. As we've all seen several times in court, is that sometimes even though they seem to know what they're doing or tend to know what they're doing, once we get into the minutia of it and the rules, which they must follow just as attorneys must, that they struggle. And we would talk about them maybe wanting to go hire an attorney or maybe get an attorney. But at this point, if they wish to proceed, we'd allow them, but have patience and respect and make sure that they felt heard by the time that they were done.
Thank you, Attorney Curtis. Our next question will go to Attorney Jason Kokomo. Jason, I want to make sure before I ask it that we can hear you because we keep having an issue with you freezing. Okay, good. I can hear you and see you just fine. I'm going to move on to the question. Okay, and the question is, what is your position regarding alternative courts to meet our community's needs for drug courts, mental health courts, veterans courts, landlord-tenant court, etc.? And then the second part of this question is, where do you stand on jail alternative programs for low-risk offenders?
Alternative courts are something that definitely should be encouraged, especially the sobriety courts. I mean, you have people out there with alcoholism where they really have to adjust their lives because their old set of friends are out, pretty much bad influences on them. These courts are very successful, the programs that they have to offer, and I think all of them need to be encouraged and expanded. The second part of your question relates to the incarceration. Or alternatives for incarceration, I think that you said. Obviously, there are things that can be done in lieu of a jail sentence, and all of those things need to be considered. We have a backlog with cases, and it is going to be necessary for the efficient administration of justice.
Thank you, Attorney Kokomo. Same question to you, Attorney Baker Mathis. The question is, what is your position regarding alternative courts to meet our community's needs for drug courts, mental health courts, veterans courts, landlord-tenant courts, etc.? And the second part of the question, where do you stand on jail alternative programs for low-risk offenders?
Well, as I said in my introduction, I was a member of the sobriety court program for over 7 years. I was in it as a prosecutor, and when I moved into defense work, I continued on the team because I had such a commitment to that program and have seen the impact that those types of alternative courts have had in our community. It's a better investment of time and energy than to lock people up. And so I'm all for alternative programs to jail, because I think that if we invest that time and energy into our community members, we're saving them from getting into the jail to prison pipeline. And that is not something we want to see in our community.
Thank you. The same question to Attorney Mark Curtis. And that question is, what is your position regarding alternative courts to meet our community's needs for drug courts, mental health courts, veterans courts, landlord-tenant court, etc.? And then secondly, where do you stand on jail alternative programs for low-risk offenders?
I am a firm believer in alternative courts. I believe that the drug court, the sobriety court particularly, and then with Judge Michael Nolan creating the Veterans Court, I believe that was a huge step forward. I think that alternative courts are appropriate. They are they're doing well. They help the people that are in them. I don't see any reason not to participate or to send somebody that qualifies through the courts for there. They are, I can't stress enough how amazing they are. I've had a lot of clients go through them. As far as alternative jail incarceration for low risk, if there's a program, and I know the sheriff has a couple or has had a couple that work and that we can use them to assure that it helps our community, then I believe that they should be used. And I agree that low risk offenders, if there is an alternative to jail, should explore those options.
Thank you, Attorney Curtis. And to you, Attorney Matthew Casel, same question. What is your position regarding alternative courts to meet our community needs for drug courts, mental health courts, veterans courts, landlord-tenant court, etc.? And then secondly, where do you stand on jail alternative programs for low-risk offenders?
Thank you, Brianna. I think first and foremost, our alternative courts here, especially in Muskegon County, have done wonders for the people that go through them. I'd probably say over 100 clients, if not more, specifically go through courts like sobriety court, whether it be misdemeanor or felony sobriety court. And I also had clients go through recovery court up in circuit court. And, these people don't need to be jailed most of the time. Really what they need is someone to come, hand in hand with them side by side and help them get the resources they need for recovery. I also think mental health court is good as well. We have that in Muskegon County as well. And I think that's been tremendous, recognizing the mental health component of crime in this particular. So I think we should definitely continue on with those. I think that we really need to work hard in this county to get felony sobriety court back. The second part of your question is jail alternative programs. I absolutely believe that we need to look at jail alternatives, especially for youthful or young offenders, simply because a lot of these offenders going to jail and being more people is actually going to hurt them.
Thank you, Attorney Kaso.
Thank you.
All right, our next question will go to Attorney Paula Baker Mathis. And this question is, do judges have an obligation, in your opinion, to improve public understanding of the courts? And if so, how should they carry out that obligation?
Yes, I believe that they do have an obligation to improve public understanding of courts, and they can work on the state or local bar committees to do that. They have to be careful because they are in a very important position to stay out of, advocating for certain laws and such. But doing education programs in the community or meeting with local community organizations can help them carry out that obligation. We do have a very active community organizations like Rotary and Women's Division of Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber and a number of them, and working with them to improve that public understanding is, I think, the best way to do that.
Thank you, Attorney Baker Mathis. And this question now goes to Attorney Mark Curtis. It is the same question. Do judges have an obligation to improve public understanding of the courts? And if so, how should they carry out that obligation?
Thank you. I believe, as I did when I was a prosecutor, that you do have to go out into the community and help the community understand the process and the system. You can't do that simply by sitting behind your bench or sitting behind your desk and hoping that everybody understands. I think that Judge Pittman and Prosecutor Hilson do a great job. They have radio shows on this station that reach out to the community and work to help them understand. Just the other day, I met with a group of pastors who asked me if I was judge, what I would need from them. And I said it was communication. It's the ability that if they want to pick up the phone and call and talk to me, and they want me to come to a meeting and talk, that they'll pick up the phone when I call them, and they'll allow me to come and talk to them also. Without getting out and talking to the community and getting to know the individuals in the community, then we're not properly serving the community as judges. You can sit on a bench, but if you're there for 20 years and don't go out and see what's going on in the community, then you don't know what you're serving. And I think it's important that we do that.
Thank you, Attorney Curtis. Same question to Attorney Kaso. And that question is, do judges have an obligation to improve public understanding of the courts? And if so, how should they carry out that obligation?
I believe the courts do have that obligation, and I think it's important. How do we do that? I think first and foremost is going with a prosecutor like DJ Hilson and going out and appearing on radio shows, appearing at schools to educate our youth. I think it's important. Also, it's important to what I would like to do, quite frankly, is I would like to hold some judicial forums. And that is not just one judge going in the community, but multiple judges going out in the community and saying, not only educating the community, but also asking the community, how can we make this better? How can we, as a judiciary, improve your community? And getting input from them directly. I think sitting behind a bench, sitting behind your desk doesn't work. I think you need the community's input. The community, the people of Muskegon County employ the district court judge. And I think it's imperative that we get out in the community, be visible, be an open court, educate them, and get input from the public.
Thank you, Attorney Kaso. This question now goes to Attorney Jason Kokomo. Do judges have an obligation to improve the understanding of the courts? And if so, how should they carry out that obligation?
Yes, I do believe that they have an obligation, and that would be done through outreach with citizens. We all have an obligation to add to the law to the extent, writing articles for publication, things of that nature. But I think that this has to be done on a case-by-case basis. I think, when you are instructing a jury, for example, that is the component of public education at a time when it really matters, because these individuals are now sitting on a jury. So, I think that is done, and it should be something that is greatly encouraged, but it usually has to be within the confines of the court environment. It would work best there, because you can't shove something down somebody's throat. They may not be willing to learn about the court system or may not want to.
Thank you, Attorney Kokomo. Our next question will go to Attorney Mark Curtis first. We know research has shown us that bail amounts in Michigan have had a very disproportionate impact on people of color and also those of lower incomes. Which factors are considered in granting and setting bail amounts for defendants, and do you support bail reform?
Well, setting bail is determined on several factors. One, whether or not they're a flight risk, as do they have a history of not appearing before the court? Is the charge so severe that they might have an ability to flee or want to flee? Are they a danger to the community? What did they do that has got them to be before the court? Those two, I believe, are the most major factors to determine, to look at. I believe every individual that appears before the court, no matter what it is, needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis and what they are charged with or not charged with. The issue is, when it comes to bail amounts, is it appropriate for the charge? Is it appropriate for the community? Is it appropriate to ensure that person's appearance in court? I think that is the most important thing. I don't want somebody sitting in jail because they can't post an $8,000 bond on a retail fraud case and sitting there for 28 days waiting for a pretrial or 2 weeks waiting for a pretrial. Bail reform, I would have to look at it and see what it works. I believe that it's used properly, then it would be sufficient.
Time's up. Thank you, Attorney Curtis. Same question to Attorney Matt Casel. I'm sorry, I just called you Matt. I was going to call you Matthew. Attorney Matthew Casel. And that question is, knowing what the research has shown us about bail amounts in Michigan having a disproportionate impact on people of color and lower incomes, which factors are considered in granting and setting bail amounts for defendants? And do you support bail reform?
First and foremost, obviously we have to look at what bail amount is sufficient to protect the public, the severity of the charge, the history of appearance for that particular individual, and also the criminal record in determining all those things. And that's what basically goes into play. The judges have a lot of discretion in determining appropriate bond. We do have, in my opinion, a bit of a problem in this county in terms of how every judge is relatively different in terms of how they set a bond. So I think we need to, as a district court, I like to have a discussion with the other judges and say, listen, how can we sort of, get a standard and how we're going to set bonds? Some judges set them high, some judges set them low. So I think we do need to look at that. In regards to bail reform, obviously, not knowing exactly what they want to do with bail reform, I have to look at it to see exactly what's being proposed and also what's being proposed, what are they trying to specifically address. But as a judge, I'd be willing to look at anything and certainly consider it.
Thank you, Attorney Casel. Same question to Attorney Jason Kokomo. And that question is, with the research being shown that bail amounts in Michigan have a disproportionate impact on people of color and lower incomes, which factors are being considered in granting and setting bail amounts for defendants? And do you support bail reform?
In terms of the factors, the number one factor in my mind is whether they're going to show up and appear at trial. We have a rule in this country, it's innocent until proven guilty. And that when you're a pretrial detainee, that chance to prove yourself never really comes until the day of trial. And if you have to stay in stay in jail the whole time, you're really going to be at a disadvantage. You also want to look at the nature of the crime and whether there's a propensity for violence, because you do need to safeguard the public. But in terms of the second part of your question, I think that, yes, I would definitely support bail reform of any type of nature, because there are just some very unjust situations where people are charged and they don't have the money to get out of jail.
Thank you, Attorney Kokomo. Same question to you, Attorney Baker Mathis. So we know research has shown us that bail amounts in Michigan have had a disproportionate impact on people of color and lower incomes. Which factors are considered in granting and setting bail amounts for defendants? And do you support bail reform?
I've seen the impact of the impact of bail on many of my clients and the lower income individuals. And it becomes a serious burden to the family. And so I do support bail reform. I do know that looking at the seriousness of the crime as well as protection of the public are two of the major aspects that we need to focus on when setting a bond, as well as the previous criminal record and their lack of or their failure to appear in the past. But I strongly disagree with some judges appear to think that putting somebody in jail is the right place when they need to detox, because that's not the right place to be. But I hope that we can look at jail bond reform in the future.
Thank you, Attorney Baker Mathis. Our next question will go to Attorney Matthew Kasel. This question is, do you believe the composition of juries adequately and fairly reflects society at large? Why or why not? And if not, what will you do to bring change?
Thank you, Brianna. I will say this, the juries that I've had, I think they do not adequately represent who that particular defendant is, and I don't know the reason for that in particular. I know that it has to do with who obviously is registered to vote and obviously who appears. But I have had some clients remark to me, they look out, especially minority clients, and they look out in the jury pool and they don't see who they are, that kind of person from their background. And it's not just their race, it's from who's from their socioeconomic background. This is supposed to be a jury of their peers, and they don't see that. So I do think there is a bit of an issue in Muskegon County with that. How we do that, I think, that's something I'd like to talk to the community on, talk to the county clerk about, see how we can get a more representative jury pool out there. So that's, I don't have a definite answer, but I'm willing to sit down and try to figure out what to do.
Time's up. Thank you, Attorney Kasel. This question now goes to Attorney Jason Kokomo. It is the same question. Do you believe the composition of juries adequately and fairly reflects society at large? Why or why not? And if not, what will you do to change it?
It's an interesting question on the, I believe that, obviously the jury system is a critical component to our system of justice. It's actually the only time that there's really direct participation by the individuals in society. Even in the legislative aspect, we elect representatives. We have a representative form of government. The juries are really the only time where there's direct decision-making by the people. Whether there's they adequately reflects society as a whole, probably not. And a lot of this goes to the willingness of individuals to sit on the juror. And we all know of individuals who try to get off of sitting on a jury. And I think that is problematic, and it often results in a lack of interest and then unfair practices in front of a jury.
Thank you, Attorney Kokomo. Same question to Attorney Baker Mathis. Do you believe the composition of juries adequately and fairly reflects society at large? Why or why not? And if not, what will you do to change this?
Well, my experience doing many jury trials is that frequently they do not represent the jury of my clients' peers. And unfortunately, we have a system in place that has been created that needs to be updated and made more modern and more inclusive. And I think that we need to work with our county clerk and the state, because I believe they provide us with the software for selecting individuals, to make a better pool so that our juries can reflect the individual who is in the courtroom having their case.
Thank you, Attorney Baker Mathis. And last but not least, same question to Attorney Mark Curtis. Do you believe the composition of juries adequately and fairly reflects society at large? Why or why not? And if not, what will you do to change this?
Thank you. In all of my trials that I did as a prosecutor and the trials that I've done as defense attorney, I'm always surprised by the amount or the lack of diversity in some of the juries, to the point that I would actually go and talk to the jury clerk and ask if they could pull another pool or groups in to see if we could pull a little bit more of the representation into the community. I believe as a judge, you also have the ability to ask the jury clerk to either find you another pool or bring in more than what they already have brought in order to try to get that diverse group. The group that is given to the judge is provided by the clerk, which is provided by the software that comes from the state. But you're not limited by how many jurors you pull in. And if you don't believe you have a diverse enough field or a diverse enough pool, you can ask the clerk to bring in more jurors. And I think as a judge, that's our responsibility to assure that it fairly reflects our society.
Thank you, Attorney Curtis. And our next question will go to Attorney Jason Kokomo. This question is, what are your views on whether the court as a whole deals effectively with racial and gender biases?
What am I, and whether the court deals with effectively?
Yes.
I would say that they do not deal effectively with racial bias. The jury pool would be a good example. I mean, obviously, if you don't get a jury of your peers, that can result in some prejudice. When you're dealing with people, that is, there's discrimination in just about every aspect of life. But when you're talking about people, it becomes insidious, and in the same rules apply to other forms of discrimination. I think that we are making inroads in society, obviously with some of the rulings from the Supreme Court on gay marriage and gay rights are being protected a little bit more, but we have a long way to go.
Thank you, Attorney Kokomo. Same question to you, Attorney Baker Mathis. What are your views on whether the court as a whole deals effectively with racial and gender biases?
I think that the court has been struggling to deal effectively with racial and gender bias. I know that it has improved over time, but we are at a point in our society where we need to make changes a lot faster than they have been made. Our leaders need to be keenly aware of the racism, hatred, and bigotry that undergird our society. And I have observed how that bias has been present in the courtroom and outside of the courtroom. And I hope to bring that sensitivity and experience to the bench.
Thank you, Attorney Baker Mathis. Same question to Attorney Mark Curtis. And the question is, what are your views on whether the court as a whole deals effectively with racial and gender biases?
I don't believe there's any place for racial, gender, or any other type of bias in a courtroom. I think the courts have been dealing with it better, but I can assure you that will never be an issue if I'm elected judge. The person or the litigant that's standing before me will be judged on their own person and how they have done or what they are willing to do. There's no room for that in the judicial system. There is no room for that in anywhere. And the one place that we can make sure, that I can make sure as a judge that it doesn't happen, is in my courtroom. And that every individual that appears before me will be treated with dignity, respect, no matter what their race, their gender, their nationality, or their orientation. They're there to be given a fair chance, just like any other person, and to be respected just like any other person. And that will not occur, and that will occur in my courtroom, is that they will be treated fairly and they will be treated with respect.
Thank you, Attorney Curtis. Same question to you, Attorney Matt Casel. What are your views on whether the court as a whole deals effectively with racial and gender biases?
Well, first and foremost, I will say for our local court here, and I have a deep respect for all our judges here, I think that our judges in Muskegon County have dealt with that very well. I have a lot of respect for them. I think that none of our judges, I believe, are racially biased or ever made a gender or racial bias decision that I've had or I've been involved with. I think it's absolutely 100% important that every person is treated with dignity and respect, that the law is applied to them equally. Doesn't matter what their race is, doesn't matter what their gender is. That will happen in my courtroom. I don't look at race. I don't look at gender. What we look at is who this person is and treat them with dignity and respect. I think that's probably the most important thing of a judge is we are supposed to have blind justice. And I can only speak for myself in terms of what I will do, and that's what I will do in my courtroom.
Thank you, Attorney Casel. Our next question to Attorney Baker Mathis is, what injustices have you witnessed in or outside of the courtroom, and what was your response to those events?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
That's okay. I will repeat. What injustices have you witnessed in or outside of the courtroom, and what was your response to those events?
What injustices have I witnessed? Oh, okay. Well, when I've seen any sort of injustices in the courtroom, it can be the way that a court rules on something, or how an individual is being treated. And I generally try to address it in a non-confrontational way, but to work with the individual to try and get them to understand what is going on. But sometimes people have their viewpoints and make those decisions, and we have to be respectful of their opinion. But I have generally tried to work with individuals to help them understand it and point out the injustice that has gone on.
Thank you, Attorney Baker Mathis. Same question to you, Attorney Mark Curtis. The question is, what injustices have you witnessed in or outside of the courtroom, and what was your response to those questions or those events? Sorry.
As a person that served in the military and in the prosecutor's office, it's one that sticks out in my head, was that I was in the prosecutor's office. We got done with a district court trial and came to find out after the person was convicted that our witness actually had lied. And that was very, very disturbing. We went down immediately to the judge, informed the judge that that's what had occurred, because he had put the person in jail. That person out of jail, dismissed the case, and then prosecuted the individual that lied during the trial. That's stuff that cannot be tolerated, nor should happen. And at that point, that was something that I could control and I could do and needed to be done, and I did without hesitation.
Thank you, Attorney Curtis. Same question now to Attorney Matthew Casel. What injustices have you witnessed in or outside of the courtroom, and what was your response to those events?
Thank you, Brianna. One of the things that particularly comes to mind is kind of goes back to what the question about bail. I have seen bail used by the court sometimes as not really a weapon, but sort of an unfair way to keep somebody in jail. I had a particular case, luckily it wasn't in this county, but I had a guy who had a misdemeanor jury trial. and the evidence was quite shaky, and he did end up getting convicted. But he had appeared to every single court date. He had been on time. He didn't have a severe criminal record, and the judge after the trial was one of those things where you could tell, the judge didn't like him, the people involved didn't like him, the officers didn't like him. He's kind of a loud-spoken guy. And the judge ended up revoking his bond. And I argued with the court, and I said, well, Judge, he's always showing up on time. Why are you doing this? And I think the one thing I did with that is basically try to file reconsideration because it just wasn't fair.
Thank you, Attorney Kasel. Same question to you, Attorney Kokomo. What injustices
Well, in terms of,
Go ahead.
yeah,
You want me to repeat it? Go
ahead.
What injustices have you witnessed in or outside of the courtroom, and what was your response to those events?
I guess some of the biggest injustices relate to the overcharging by prosecutor's office, not necessarily in Muskegon, but in other counties, Ottawa County. It seems that some of the charges are a little bit unnecessary. But I guess the second part of that would be just the way we treat people. I'm a big advocate for treating people fairly, giving them the time of day, their day in court. With some of the judges, not necessarily in Muskegon, but other places, you really get some judges where they just want to direct the proceedings. They want you to answer their questions they want to, and you go in front of them, and sometimes they just have a bad day. I think we just need to start treating people properly with respect.
Thank you, Attorney Kokomo. Our next question goes to Attorney Mark Curtis. Do you think the court system is working, or do you believe that the civil or criminal justice system is breaking down?
I believe that it's working. It's working as long as the participants agree with what the judge is deciding and that we follow the rules of law and the rules of our society. Sometimes it feels as if it's not working. As we say sometimes, when both parties leave the courtroom unhappy, then it was a good day for justice, because not everybody should be completely happy when they come in, when they leave, because that means that the judge did his job and made a right decision, and everybody was sorted out and treated equally. This criminal justice system and the justice system needs to be tweaked. It needs to be looked at. But I believe in our country, and I believe in our justice system, and I believe that if we keep going the way we're going, we'll be okay.
Thank you, Attorney Curtis. Same question to Attorney Matthew Kasel. Do you think the court system is working, or do you believe that the civil or criminal justice system is breaking down?
I believe that in general it is working. I believe that it can be improved, however, and I think that's what we have to always strive to. One of the main reasons I ran was to improve the system here in Muskegon County and improve the district court, and that is improve how it runs efficiently, taking into consideration the time of the litigants that come in front of it, making sure that we as a court operate on schedule, make sure we're on the bench when hearing starts, and making sure that we are a people-friendly place. I've had a lot of clients remark that sometimes they don't feel like it's a people-friendly atmosphere at the courthouse, and then not a lot is explained to them. So I think it is working. It can be improved upon, and I think we do that by sitting down, talking to the public, listening to what their concerns are, applying those concerns where we can to make the court work better and work for everybody in Muskegon County.
Thank you, Attorney Kasel. Same question to you, Attorney Kokomo. The question is, do you think the court system is working, or do you believe that the civil or criminal justice system is breaking down? Did we lose him? Okay, I'm going to move on to Attorney Baker Mathis. Same question.
Thank you. I don't think our criminal justice or civil justice system is breaking down. I think our court system is working to the best of its ability right now, but I think our society is going through a change with the Me Too movement and the Black Lives Matters movement and some of the other societal changes that are going on, and those need to be reflected in our court system as well. So I think that there's room for improvement, but I don't think that it's breaking down. And I would work to try and make it a better system.
Thank you, Attorney Baker Mathis. Next question is to Attorney Kasel. Have you ever been disciplined by the Attorney Grievance Commission? If so, explain. If you became aware of unethical conduct on the part of a trial advocate on a case in which you were presiding, how would you handle it? So there's two questions in one. You've been disciplined, and secondly, if you became aware of unethical conduct on the part of a trial advocate where you're sitting as the judge, how would you handle it?
Well, first, I've never been disciplined by attorney disciplinary committee. In regards to how I would deal with a litigant, I think my ethical obligation as a judge is to, if it's caused some type of prejudice to a litigant, whether it be a criminal defendant or a civil litigant, I think that you have to remedy that, which, however would be necessary if their misconduct has somehow adversely affected a party. But the second thing is an absolute must. You have to report it to the state bar and let them deal with it.
Thank you, Attorney Kasel. Same question to Attorney Kokomo. That question is, have you ever been disciplined by the Attorney Grievance Commission? If so, explain. And then secondly, if you became aware of unethical conduct on the part of a trial advocate on a case in which you were presiding, how would you handle it?
I guess the first part of that question, I have not been disciplined. I have a pretty squeaky record, squeaky clean, I guess. Never been grieved before, so I've never been subject to that whole process. And I guess I have had occasions. There was one occasion in a special ed context where there was some communication from a hearing officer to some of the school district employees. And I believe in that instance, I did report it. I believe that it was unfair communications. And I think that all of attorneys have an ethical obligation to do so when they see it. It may not happen much, but when it does happen, it's certainly within our responsibility to make that to file a report.
Thank you, Attorney Kokomo. Same question to you, Attorney Baker Mathis, and that is, have you ever been disciplined by the Attorney Grievance Commission? If so, explain. And if you became aware of unethical conduct on the part of a trial advocate on a case in which you were presiding, how would you handle it?
Thank you. I have never been disciplined by the Attorney Grievance Commission. If I observed unethical behavior on the part of an advocate in a case I was presiding over, I would probably stop the proceedings and try to take care of the issues right then, whether it requires some discussion with the attorney or to refer it to the state attorney or the Attorney Grievance Commission through the Bar Association. It would all depend on what is being observed at the time that I see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Baker Mathis. Same question to you, Attorney Curtis. Have you ever been disciplined by the Attorney Grievance Commission? If so, explain. And if you became aware of unethical conduct on the part of a trial advocate on a case in which you were presiding, how would you handle it?
Shortly after I started my defense firm, I was censured by the state bar because I had a client who was on trial for retail fraud in the first degree. Her co-defendant continually showed up at my office trying to speak to me. I continually told him he needed to talk to his attorney, which was a public defender, continually called the public defender, got no response, tried to call the prosecutor's office, got no response. And this individual kept coming to my office. And at one point, my private detective was sitting in the office and said, I'll go talk to him and take care of it, and sat down and interviewed him. At that point in time, once that interview was done, I turned everything over to everybody. and the state bar determined that I had contact with a represented litigant. And this took time over months. This wasn't something that just happened. We came to an agreement, and they issued a censure, and that was it.
Thank you. And you didn't get time on the second half, so I apologize. We're going to move on to the next question, however, and this will go to Attorney Kokomo. So what is your general judicial philosophy? How would you sum it up? You were a judge. What would judicial philosophy be?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that it is, in terms of, it's following the law, and it is treating people with courtesy, respect, and acknowledgement that this is their day in court. The importance of having their day in court is everything to them. As an attorney, I mean, we can pick and choose which cases we want to take, but if it's their case, it is the most important case to them. And I just am a big believer in due process, meaning that we give people a notice and an opportunity to be heard.
Thank you. Same question to Attorney Baker Mathis. The question, so what is your general judicial philosophy?
My goal to be a judge is to treat everyone with respect, to be fair and impartial to all individuals, and maintain the integrity of the court process, as well as maintaining the fairness and in following the law, despite who you are, whether you're on the prosecutor's side, the defense side, or the petitioner or the defendant side. That ultimately is my goal, would be to be fair to both sides. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Same question to you, Attorney Mark Curtis. That question is, what would be your general judicial philosophy?
My general philosophy would be to treat everyone with respect and listen to what they have to say. Everyone's entitled to their day in court and to be heard. They should be heard and feel as if they're heard when they're left. The belief I have is that our job is to follow and apply the law. It's not to legislate it from the bench. It's not to make it up as we go. It's to follow the law and the court rules as they've been put down, and to assure that everyone understands that and that everybody is treated respectfully at the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Curtis. Attorney Kasel, same question to you. What is your general judicial philosophy? Attorney Kasel, you are muted. Perhaps we can't hear you.
I'm sorry about that. That's my fault.
That is okay, no problem.
First and foremost, I would say we have to have as a judge, I want a solid understanding of the law. And if I don't know the law, or if I don't have a complete understanding of the law, to stop and make sure I know that. Second is to treat every litigant with compassion. They're a person, they're a human being, and they may be having the worst day of their life, and you need to recognize that as a judge. But also treat them with patience, and that goes hand in hand with having the patience to listen to them, to get a full understanding of the facts of a case, and then take that understanding of the law and apply it to the facts of the case. And that needs to be done without prejudice, without bias. I may feel a certain way personally about something, but it needs to apply the law as it's written. And even if I feel a different result is necessary, I have to follow the law and apply the law.
Thank you, Attorney Kasel. Next question to Attorney Baker Mathis. This question is, do you believe that all citizens have adequate access to legal help and the legal system?
No, I don't believe that all citizens have adequate access to the legal system and legal help. I think that our state and county resources are available to an extent, and it is something that is better than it was, but I don't think that the access that we have is adequate. I think that we have room for improvement to make that happen.
Thank you, Attorney Baker Mathis. Same question to you, Attorney Mark Curtis.
No, no, they do not. And I believe Muskegon's made big strides and the state's made big strides with the public defender's office, having a public defender's office that's county employed instead of the public defender contracts. But we have long strides to make sure that all citizens have equal access into the judicial system.
Same question to you, Attorney Matt Casel. Do you believe all citizens have adequate access to legal help in the legal system here in Muskegon County?
Unfortunately, no. I think as Mark said, we have made tremendous strides in this county getting access to significant legal and legal representation. However, we have a long way to go. Our public defender's office does an admirable job with the resources they have, but unfortunately, the resources aren't enough. And I think we really need to look at how we can effectively use resources to make sure every person has appropriate legal representation. That's on the criminal side. On the civil side, such as family law, that I deal a lot in. Unfortunately, there are legal aid offices that do help, but a lot of people don't qualify, and they either because of income, they're just above the line, or they don't qualify because the other side's been represented, and they just can't afford an attorney. So a lot of times, especially in family law cases, guardianships and stuff, they don't have access to proper legal representation.
Thank you, Attorney Casel. Same question to you, Attorney Kokomo, and that is, do you believe that all citizens have adequate access to the legal help and legal system?
Certainly we have programs out there, but the answer would be no. And a lot of this is related to that question that I didn't get to answer about the whether the court system is working. I mean, right now, we literally do not have the courts open on a regular basis as we did before. Sure, they're doing Zoom hearings, but we have internet problems. I was cut off of that last question. Was it adequate? No, it's not the way I would want it. There are programs out there, and legal help, and they have an amazing website. But I think that more needs to be available. And I'll add. We're supposed to add something to the law as we go about it. That's what I believe, but right now it is not running the way that I would expect it to, and more access should be definitely considered at a societal level.
Thank you, Attorney Kokomo. We're almost done here. We've got 2 more questions, and then we'll go to closing. This question goes first to Attorney Mark Curtis. The question is, what do you think are the causes of the high rates of minority incarceration, and how do you see yourself as a judge working with the Black and Brown communities to keep minor offenders from going to jail?
It's funny you asked this question, because on Monday night I was just meeting with pastors talking about this exact issue. Is the fact that I was talking to them about wanting to put in place an ability that if a young minority offender, first-time offenders, which usually we see in district court, or second offender is being able to, because as a judge, I don't know this person, their family, or necessarily their background, being able to call one of these pastors or one of these community members that have already agreed to help me do this, to call them up and ask them to sit down and talk with this person and figure out if we can help them, figure out what we need to do to help them. If we need to take them on a tour of the jail, or we need to have them talk to somebody who's been through the system, who's willing to help them. I believe that doing that and getting to them, as getting to these people at the very basic level when they're standing before the court, and get them involved with mentors or members of the community, will help.
Thank you, Attorney Curtis. Same question to you, Attorney Casel. What do you think are the causes of the high rates of minority incarceration, and how do you see yourself working with the Black and Brown communities to keep minor offenders from going to jail?
Thank you, Brianna. I think it's hard to pinpoint one exact cause. I will say, I think there's a lot of minority individuals who, one, don't have access to the same resources that a lot of people who are born into families with certain socioeconomic backgrounds. But also, I think it really comes down to having that person in your life that can tell you, hey, look, you can be something in your life. You can do something. I've had a lot of clients I sit down and when I look at their stories and where they came from, they just needed one person. They just needed one person to believe in what they could become, and they don't have that person. So I think how we solve that problem is, yes, going into the community, working with community resources. Big brothers, big sisters, Boys and Girls Club. My good friend Jenny Locke is a part of. Working with those people, getting out in the community, and interceding with these people when they're vulnerable in life, and tell them you can be something, you can do something, and help them along the way.
Thank you, Attorney Kazel. Same question to you, Attorney Kokomo. That question is, what do you think are the causes of the high rates of minority incarceration, and how do you see yourself working with the Black and Brown communities to keep minor offenders from going to jail?
Yeah. The major causes would be that, I think that they are some of the most neglected communities, largely because of, poverty. We have a strange system here where, rich people live in certain areas and the poor live in other areas. And so they become neglected from the get-go in terms of education and then employment opportunities. It's really a major problem in society. It has been for a very, very, very long time. In terms of what I will do to incarceration rates, again, I think that a lot of it
Attorney Kokomo, you had 10 seconds left, and I think we lost you there. So we're going to move on, but thank you for your answer that we did get an opportunity to hear. This question now goes to Attorney Baker Mathis. Same question. What do you think are the causes of high rates of minority incarceration, and how do you see yourself working with the Black and Brown communities to keep minor offenders from going to jail?
Well, I've observed the number of minorities incarcerated and have attributed a lot of it to the years of tough on drugs, tough on crime legislation that was passed back in the 80s and continued. And unfortunately, many of the parents, fathers and mothers of minorities ended up in prison, and it became this cycle within their community. And also with people being incarcerated for small level or low level misdemeanors or driving offenses that didn't endanger the public, creates this system that just keeps people in that cycle of incarceration. And I would hope that I'd be able to work at keeping them out of jail and those minor offenses.
Thank you, Attorney Baker Mathis. We have a question from the audience. This question comes from William Rudd. The question is, I would like to know if the candidates have ever made a complaint either to the Judicial Tenure Commission or to the Attorney Grievance Commission. Why or why not? And this question will first go to Attorney Kazel.
Thank you, Brianna. I have never, fortunately, I've never had to make a complaint to the JTC or the Attorney Grievance Commission. Fortunately, most of the colleagues I work with in Muskegon and other counties hold themselves to a high ethical standard, and I've never observed them engage in any kind of unethical behavior. So as a result, I haven't ever had to do that.
Thank you. Same question to you, Attorney Kokomo. If we've got you back, here you go. Okay.
Yeah, I believe that I did. I have made a complaint to the Judicial Tenure Commission. As I explained from a previous answer, it was in connection with a special education matter involving some communication between the hearing officer and school district employees. The reason why I did it then is that it was unfair, and if I'm ever presented with a situation similar, I would make a very similar type of complaint. Never made a complaint to a Judicial Grievance Commission. I guess that type of complaint, my understanding is that, the standing would be possessed by the client. Since all of these duties are owed to the client, you're more likely going to get some sort of result if you have a complaint made by a client. But I have done that so with Judicial Tenure Commission.
Thank you, Attorney Kokomo. Same question to you, Attorney Baker Mathis.
I have not made a complaint either to the Judicial Tenure Commission or the Attorney Grievance Commission. I have not observed any unethical behavior that would justify such a referral. When individuals have told me about certain things, I have advised them that they need to notify them, but I have not personally observed any. I think that our local community has some very upstanding lawyers, and I've had the benefit of watching them in action.
Thank you, Attorney Baker Mathis. Same question to you, Attorney Mark Curtis.
I have. When I was working in a firm that there were 5 of us in, we discovered that one of the attorneys was actually using the money out of the client trust account for his own personal use. And that is a huge violation. And we reported him to the Attorney Grievance Commission.
And that you should have done in that case. All right. And we are going to now move to, it looks like, our last question before we go to our closing. This also comes from the public, from Prosecutor Timothy Mott. Many politicians use negative tactics to win an election. So conversely, what positive trait do you admire about one of your opponents that you would make him or her, that you believe would make him or her a great judge? Thank you for that question. And we will start with Attorney Kokomo.
What would make which one of these guys a great judge? All?
You can
repeat that question?
Yep, I will repeat it one more time. What positive trait do you admire about one of your opponents that would make him or her a great judge?
Well, I would start with, everybody up here is obviously qualified. They're all well-respected attorneys in the community. I have a lot of respect for Paula. She's been at it for a very long time doing criminal representation, and has been on the prosecutors in the prosecutor's office. I know that she's had some experience with pro bono cases and in helping people that are disenfranchised in that regard. So I still believe that I'm the most qualified candidate by virtue of experience because of work in civil as well as criminal. But I guess I would pick Paula on the, for the reasons stated.
Thank you, Attorney Kokomo. And we're now going to go to Attorney Baker Mathis. Same question to you. Would you like me to repeat it, or you probably see it because it's on the chat, so it's in the comments. I will repeat it though. What positive trait do you admire about one of your opponents that would make him or her, and in this case it would be him because you are the only female on a good judge?
Well, thank you. I guess I would say thank you to Jason for those kind words. I would say that one of the characteristics I admire about Matt Casel is his diligence in representing his client in some criminal cases. I have seen him in the courtroom be very diligent and successful in defending some very difficult cases. And that is what I would admire about him.
Thank you, Attorney Baker Mathis. Attorney Mark Curtis, you are next. Would you like me to repeat the question or?
No, I've got it right there.
All right, thank you.
I think the one person through this whole thing that I've had that I believe when we're talking about campaign tactics is Matt. I know Matt and I have talked a few times during this process. We've always been civil with each other, just as we should be as we're in a courtroom dealing with each other. I believe that Matt would show and demonstrate the respect that he talks about in the courtroom.
Thank you, Attorney Curtis. Matt Casel, you are up. Who do you admire on this panel?
Thank
And
you.
why?
Thank you. First and foremost, I appreciate the comments from Mark as well as Paula. It means a tremendous deal to me to have colleagues who I respect say that. I'm going to cheat I'm going to cheat a little bit here. First and foremost, I have a ton of respect for Mark because of his service to the community and also in the military. I have a tremendous respect for those who are willing to sacrifice and lay down their lives potentially in service to our country, and that can be stated, more fervently than that. But I will say, for Paula, I have a deep respect and admiration for how passionately she represents her clients. I've been in Judge Smedley's court with her, and when an attorney says they're going to the mat for a client, that means they're laying it all out there. And really, a component of this is, incredibly the judge. And she just represents her clients to the absolute end, making sure every single scoring or point is scored in sentencing. And she does a tremendous amount for her clients.
Thank you so much, Attorney Casel. Very nice words. I love the camaraderie that we as attorneys have with one another. We can go at it in the courtroom, but at the end of the day, we all are respectful for the most part with one another. And that is really, I think, a compliment to this county and a service to our community. So thank you all for those answers. I am now going to move into our closing. Well, there is one more question that popped up. Do you all have time for one more question, or are you ready for closing? I know it's 7:35, so we're going to try to wrap up here.
Let's do it.
Okay. This question comes from Ona Sanders. It states, I hear a lot of the candidates stating that they are willing to work with the public to create a better justice system. In what ways are you willing to incorporate the social workers that intern and work with the public defender's office in ensuring that the public has the best access to resources? Who would like to answer that question? Matt, go ahead. Attorney Casel.
Well, let me tell you something. That was actually, and I have some notes here, and that was one thing I really wanted to mention. The public defender's office right now is using social workers, using mental health professionals as part of a comprehensive defense. And I think that's incredibly smart thing to do. Mental health problems has a significant component to a lot of crimes, and it usually leads to drug and alcohol addiction. It leads to other things, and so incorporating those resources from the community through social workers helps us as lawyers, one, understand what kind of problem we're fighting, but also helps us present to the court and what the solution is. And as a judiciary, helps us choose an appropriate sentence that actually deals with the root issue, as opposed to just saying, okay, this is a behavioral problem, let's just put them in jail. It helps us understand and create the appropriate remedy.
Thank you, Attorney Casel, for taking that on. Anyone else like to answer this question? All right. Oh, I'm sorry.
I will.
Attorney Baker Mathis. Would you like me to repeat it?
Thank you. I think that we can, sure.
Okay. The statement is, I hear a lot of candidates stating that they are willing to work with the public to create a better judicial system. In what ways are you willing to incorporate social workers that intern and work with the public defender's office in ensuring that the public has the best access to resources?
Well, I already work with those resources. The interns and our social workers do a fantastic job for my office in helping to create a holistic solution to their criminal justice situation. And we try to work with them to maneuver through this system the best way possible with the best possible outcome. And I think that we can incorporate them into our specialty courts, because I think that is where those individuals will help us the most. And if we incorporate more specialty courts into our criminal justice system, we'll be using more of these individuals to help us get the right result for the right people.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Attorney Baker Mathis, for that answer. We are now going to move to our closing, and as promised, I had indicated at the beginning we would go in reverse alphabetical order. So that means Attorney Jason Kokomo, you will start your 1 minute closing, and we would like you to discuss, hopefully, what separates you from your competitors and why they should vote for you for district court judge.
Yes. Well, first of all, as I explained, the district court does both. There's a criminal side as well as a civil. Now, the civil is very important, and that includes landlord-tenant, land contract forfeitures, and all civil claims under $25,000. So that requires some knowledge of property law, contract law, personal injury. I am the candidate that has experience on both the criminal as well as the civil. I'm a candidate that has prior judicial experience as a special ed hearing officer, and I'm the only candidate that's born and raised here in the city in Muskegon. I believe that is critical because it reflects that I have probably a better understanding about the culture, the history, and the people here in Muskegon than all of the other candidates. Outside of that, I'm just a regular guy, and as a result of the combination of these factors, I think that the voters should vote for me on August 4th.
Thank you, Attorney Kokomo. Question goes now to Attorney Matt Kasel. Same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
No, that's okay, Brianna. I appreciate that. First and foremost, thank you again for hosting this. I have a deep respect for all the candidates, and basically, the question is, what would put me head and shoulders above my competitors or my colleagues in the legal field? And what I believe that is this: I've practiced in private practice my entire career, and most of that has been as a small business person. Small businessmen, anyone watching out there or small businessmen or small business women, whoever it is, know that it takes a workforce mentality to be successful. And it takes a dedication beyond a simple 9-to-5 job. It takes dedication, sometimes getting up at 6 a.m., sometimes staying as late as 8, 9 o'clock to the wee hours of the night. That is a mentality I have. That's a mentality that I'm going to bring to the district court. I'm going to work my tail end off to make this system better, to work for Muskegon County. And I have absolute confidence that I feel that I have the attitude that can get it done and get it done better than anybody else.
Thank you, Attorney Kasel. Same question to you, Attorney Curtis. Would you like me to repeat it, or are you good?
No, thank you, Brianna. I want to thank you for hosting. I want to thank PA from this on too. I think it's important for everybody to see us and put faces with names and voices. I think what puts me head and shoulders above everybody else is the fact that I'm qualified ×3. The fact that I have a passion for justice and a compassion for people. I get that from my military service, being deployed to Iraq, being a canine handler, military police officer, former prosecutor, and now a criminal defense attorney. To have those three unique abilities, to be able to have that dedication and service, and to have that knowledge of how the system works from the very beginning all the way through to the end, I think is very important. I think it also goes to show my character and where I come from. This position is one that's going to require a lot of patience, a lot of moving the docket and talking to people, but it's going to take respect, and showing people respect and showing people that type of mentality comes from the court. And I believe that I will bring that to the court, and I ask for your vote on August 4th.
Thank you, Attorney Curtis. Last but not least, Attorney Baker Mathis, same question to you.
Thank you again for hosting, Brianna, or moderating and hosting Mr. Billings. Margaret Mead said, we are at our best when we serve others. And I have taken that to heart during the course of my career as a public servant, as a prosecutor, as a defense attorney, as a legal aid attorney. I have handled every type of case that comes before the district court, civil and criminal. I believe that my experience from both sides of the courtroom makes me an excellent candidate for district court judge and shows that I have the ability to be fair and impartial to both sides. And I am a hard worker and a dedicated public servant, as well as a respected community member, and ask that you vote for me.
Thank you, Attorney Baker Mathis. I just want to say again to my colleagues, we appreciate you. When I say we, I am also a person that will be voting. And I think it's important for those that have not had contact or gotten to know you in any personal way to have this opportunity to hear from each of you. That I've learned a lot, and I'm hoping that those that have tuned in have as well. So thank you for taking the time. I know running for office is no fun. It's a lot of work, a lot of stress, anxiety. I can only imagine the time that you all took to prepare for today. You all did excellent. I'm very impressed. And I just wish you all the best of luck. I'm going to turn this now over to PA 103.7 The Beat.
Thank you so much, Brianna Scott, Attorney Brianna Scott. I want to say thank you to all the candidates. It is amazing to see this view of all of y'all running, very well qualified, and I wish you well. And I'm very proud of our community to work together from different places and everybody coming together for the betterment of the community. So I hope you enjoyed this broadcast, Muskegon, simulcast on M106.1, 103.7, on Facebook, on YouTube. You can go back and watch this broadcast. Once again, thanks to you, Attorney Brianna Scott, for putting together all the questions. That's very impressed. And to all the candidates in Muskegon, thank you for listening. Make sure you have a good day. God bless.
Good night.
Thanks, PA.
Bye-bye.